Good evening, good evening, good evening. And thank you for joining me with Conversations with Taz. And I know Taztastic Tuesdays has not dropped yet. I'm going to record it once we're done here. Um, and as always, you can either click the link in my bio or you can just look for the video that will appear after this one because it always posts to here also and just listen to it and go from there. But we have a lot to get into tonight. A lot has happened over the weekend. A lot has happened over the past week, and we're gonna break it all down. Let Oh Jesus, Marian Joseph. Let's start. Hey, my lovely. Um, let's start from salon.com. Schools out forever. Forever. Arizona moves to kill public education with new universal voucher law. Last Friday, while the country reeled from the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, Arizona made history of a different sort. Legislators in Grand Canyon State passed a universal school voucher bill that, once signed by Governor Doug Ducey, hope I pronounced that correctly, will become the most wide-reaching school privatization plan in the country. Now I know a lot of you were like, Taz, what? How's this gonna hurt? It'll make education better for people. Now, 3 out of 4 of my children did start off at a charter school. This charter school was sponsored by a collection of Tuskegee Airmen. They had a very wide-spanning curriculum. It was wonderful. That's why I enrolled my children there. Plus, I wanted my children to see educators that looked like them. Every charter school isn't like that. And when you put children in private schools, parochial schools, things like that, there's no standard of education. These are schools that just basically teach children how to pass standardized tests so that they can continue to get funding. And it's easier to indoctrinate children. You know what they're trying to say that liberal colleges do to kids? It's easier to indoctrinate them that way. It's easier to downplay the educational system. This is how the Daughters of the Confederacy first got a stronghold on the South. And this is why you see so many Southern individuals infantilizing the antebellum period, Reconstruction, Jim Crow era, things like that. This is why so many people are willing to have a wedding or a party on a plantation. This is why when certain people take plantation tours and visits, they get upset when the actual history of the plantation is being told. This is far from a good thing. Far from it. The further you remove people from public school education, you're going closer and closer to separate but equal. And what they mean by equal is you get teachers in a building. And how can I say this without offending someone that I do care for deeply? Actually, there's no way to do it. I always bring out the truth, so I'm going to continue to bring you the truth here. Someone that I know had their dreams come true. They got hired at a school. Have they gone to college for education? Are they qualified to educate? No, but they got hired as a teacher's assistant. And this is what they do. This is how they get around things. And this is somebody who's wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, who's going to take whatever lesson plan they get and teach it, not really thinking about the ramifications that come after it. But moving on, like I said, we have a lot to cover tonight. From avclub.com. Even more Ezra Miller allegations emerge, this time from abroad. How much further abroad do we have to go? It seems as if they have been terrorizing the globe. Few pop culture stories are more baffling than Ezra Miller's current reign of apparent terror, which spans continents and threatens multi-billion-dollar film franchises. No, it threatens the safety of minors, women, non binary people, two spirit individuals of the indigenous community, and so on and so forth. But capitalist society, they're going to be more worried about franchises and corporations than individuals and their well being and the potential PTSD that they're stricken with for the rest of their lives. But I digress. Let's carry on. Following recent reports of alleged brainwashing and a farm full of guns, a new variety piece explores additional accusations that occurred across Europe over the past 2 years. Past 2 years? Why does it take so long for things to come to light regarding, oh, that's right, Ezra Miller is still the complexion for protection? Let's continue. The outlet published comments for the first time from the woman who Miller choked in a viral video from Iceland. Why are you just now publishing her words? They choked her. And as much as we may not like Ezra Miller right now, their pronouns are they, them. They do identify as non binary. So we can hate on them and not like their behavior and not like what they stand for, but let us not be disrespectful. Variety first spoke to this woman who chose to remain anonymous. I would too, because this motherfucker crazy. Back in 2020. So why are you just now publishing her word? And she recently decided to go public with her comments. She said that in moments before the video, she had spoken with Miller about scars they'd gotten in a fight and joked, "Just so you know, I'd take you in a fight," before telling them to meet her in the smoking section in 2 minutes. "I think it's just fun and games." But then it wasn't. All of a sudden, they're on top of me, choking me, still screaming in my face, "If I want to fight." Nothing about this is normal. Nothing about this is okay. I'm all for defending yourself. And I am one that has a plethora of jokes with my children, my siblings, my friends, that, if the public were to see our jokes out of context, be like, "Oh." And obviously, this woman was like, "Oh, Ezra and I are cool. They'll be okay with this jokey joke," not realizing how unstable Ezra Miller is. And the instability of Ezra Miller, just like all of these domestic terrorists that are making it unsafe for everyone to live in the United States right now, it's just causing them to get worse. It is legitimately just causing them to get worse. And if you're unsure of what I'm talking about, as it says right here, there's a new blog out. And I explore why the United States feels like the celebration of independence equates to hunting people. Because far too many people celebrated the independence of white men in the United States by hunting marginalized people. And before you go, "But Taz, white people were shot too." White supremacy is willing to sacrifice their own skin folk to still stay at the top of the hierarchy. Keep that in mind. Keep that firmly in mind. Yes, they are stopping my hug tour, but I made an executive decision today, and I'm glad you brought that up. I made an executive decision today, and I talked to some people very, very close to me, and I'm definitively going to do this in September. I don't care. I'm going to do this in September. I am no longer going to allow people to keep me from the people that I need to connect with face to face. There are certain people that I need to look in their eye, and there are certain people who need to look in my eye, and we need to truly, truly make sure the other one is okay. And if I don't make it out of the tour, fine. At least I go down doing what I felt good about in my heart. If I do, then hey, it was the ancestors' will. Either way, I'm doing it in September. Whoop, whoop. Oh, yeah. Party time. Party time. Oh, I can make some donuts and bring them with me. Ew, there we go. Sorry. One of my nails is uneven. I can't take that. Let my nails breathe for a little bit. Uh, let's go to the first video of the evening, and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Whoops.
Do you ever break the law? Of course I break the law. I mean, look at my pants. So the Supreme Court recently made this ruling that if you were convicted for a crime and there was new evidence to prove that you were innocent, you're shit out of luck. So if your lawyer made mistakes during your trial, and let's face it, a lot of people can't afford, fancy pants lawyers. And so they're going to be working with people that are like potentially very overworked and very tired. But that new evidence can't be used to exonerate you. No, you just have to rot in prison for a crime you didn't commit. That's what the Supreme Court is now saying. All right, so we have to ask ourselves, for one, why would they do that? And the prison industrial complex, if you're encapsulated in a prison, you're free labor, or mostly free labor, for 4,000 corporations to use you. If you want to look up the companies that are using prison labor, you'll be like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And the prisoners have no rights. They can't form a prison labor union. No, that was banned in the 70s. I mean, disco and banning prison unions, lame. Maybe you're like, oh, well, they're in prison and they should be punished for their crimes by doing slave labor for corporations. I mean, should they though? Because I don't know, it kind of seems like then it's like, the corporations are going to want people in prison. Mm-hmm. And maybe you're like, well, what does this have to do with me? I am an upstanding citizen. I don't break laws. Really? Or do you just not get caught breaking the laws that you break? And also, laws are being passed under our noses all the time. I mean, do you even know the laws are being passed? I have like no idea about half the laws that are flip-flopping around the courts. What if it becomes illegal to grow your own food? Or what if it becomes illegal to not have like an Elon Musk microchip implanted into your brain? Then what? That's my hair. We have no idea what laws are going to be passing in the future. So maybe we shouldn't just like self-righteously think that prisoner rights has nothing to do with us, because maybe it's going to have everything to do with us in this like dystopian place that we're kind of like surfing towards. I just think this isn't cool. And we as a citizenship should be very aware of how the legal judicial system, I don't know why I'm putting that in quotes, but it doesn't feel that just to me, okay? We should be aware and interacting with how they're developing the collective morality of our nation.
Let's start off with some historical context. Many people believe that slavery was abolished. It wasn't. The parameters of slavery changed. You were able to be enslaved if you were indebted to someone, aka the 13th Amendment. Hence the fact that we have the school to prison pipeline. Those that are most notably affected by this are members of marginalized communities, most specifically Black and Brown individuals. Because look at how many white, especially white cisgendered heterosexual men, are allowed to not receive prison sentences because it would negatively affect their lives. Think about that. Now, let's take a more realistic, up to date view as to why the SCOTUS would rule in this favor. One, it allows police to continue to utilize police brutality and excessive force. It also allows police to continue to profile people and unjustly arrest them to have a higher closing rate. How many videos have you seen on social media where the suspect is white, middle aged, but a black or brown person is a person that's being accosted, the person being handcuffed, the person being ushered off to jail, and then they sit there for days, weeks, months, even years before they're exonerated? This takes that away from them because once prosecuted and found guilty on below circumstantial evidence, it takes away from the Innocence Project. Remember the Central Park Five? Remember Emmett Till? Also, this allows white supremacist groups to continue to infiltrate peaceful protests and turn them into riots and have people unjustly incarcerated because of what they've done. You remove these people from the population, you remove them from voting rolls, the economy, from neighborhoods that they would have stood up for to fight against gentrification, which is just the new age colonization. There are so many layers to this decision, but the basis is it is a way to re-enslave Black and brown people. It is a new way to perform genocide legally. Because why else would the SCOTUS decide, hey, if you were not properly represented, if proper evidence was suppressed from you, you can no longer present it? Maybe because the Innocence Project and all of these things, all of these appeals where people are being set free and winning astronomical financial rewards for this, well, awarded substantial financial amounts, it's showing the actual disparity and what's actually going on in this country. The United States has had a long-standing PR campaign of marketing itself as the greatest nation ever, the nation with the most freedoms, which is a lie. No different than the lie that surrounds Betsy Ross and whom she created the first American flag. No, her nephew was just incredible at PR. That's it. That's all. Because just as people are currently using the name Tesla, they didn't want to give Nikolai Tesla his just dues. Just like everybody is like, oh, Edison was so great. Edison was a thief. Do we actually know if he ever invented anything? Because between Lewis Latimer and the Edison 8 and the patents he stole while working in the patent office as an inventor, what did he actually do? Just like, what did Jim Beam come up with? Except for a theft plan. So now, the SCOTUS ruling is more in line with the overturning of Roe v. Wade than more people realize. White men, as much as they try to force down our throat that racism no longer exists, there's no laws in place that doesn't encapsulate everybody, while they're simultaneously claiming that they're the most oppressed within the United States, which we all know is a lie. And they're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with being a minority. Then why are you afraid to become a minority? Because you know how you treat minorities. So you assume those that are minorities currently and that are a part of a marginalized subsect, according to you, of this society that you've created because you decided you could only detract from whiteness and no longer be white. That's a you problem, not a us problem. But it all goes hands in hand. They're afraid of becoming the minority in the free world. There could be a supermajority behind bars in modern day slavery. They don't care. You're not out voting. You're not out starting businesses. You're not out buying property. Let's go to the next video.
I'm just going to leave this here for all you Trumpers who are constantly talking about BLM and Antifa riots during 2020.
Did you really catch that? Let's run that back one more time.
I'm just going to leave this here for all you Trumpers who are constantly talking about BLM and Antifa riots during 2020.
Yeah, they talk about the riots because look up the Red Summer, specifically in Oklahoma. That portion of the Red Summer that happened there. For far too long, racist white men have taken the stance of infiltrating movements or presenting themselves from a distance as the scary black man or the scary brown man that's coming through to cause you harm. And the really messed up part about it is the white women who are their victims that get face to face with them and know that they're just a walking, talking minstrel show will still go, yeah, it was a black man. Because they're more afraid of the wrath of a racist white man than standing behind the truth of a marginalized individual. And by the time these white women realize that they're marginalized, because look at today, all they want to do is get other people to fight for them, and they want to cosplay a protest. They want to cosplay a demonstration. But you know, I guess when you're surrounded with that much privilege and protection, why would you do anything else? Speaking of privilege and protection, coming from the businessinsider.com, Trump allies paid legal fees for multiple January 6 witnesses, including Cassidy Hutchinson, sparking witness influencing concerns, reports say. It shouldn't spark it. It should concerns. It should spark a full-on investigation. Because you know what you're doing when you're paying for somebody's legal counsel. Former President Donald Trump's allies and supporters paid the legal fees for multiple people who had provided testimony to the January 6th committee, including the former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, the New York Times reported. Hutchinson eventually fired the lawyer who was paid for by a pro-Trump group and went on to provide damning testimony about Trump, the report said. So now we know from last week, in the blog that I put up and some of last week's podcast where I read to you and showed you where Trump was losing his ever loving mind on Truth Social. This is why. And it begs to differ. What made her finally, once again, finally fire them and stand on her own? What was she promised that she didn't get? What was she asked to do that she realized would be detrimental to her future employment goals? Let's call a spade a spade. Because the one thing a white woman is going to do is protect her future. And if you want more context on that, like I said, go to Blogspot under Camp Taz. Link is in the bio. Two sources familiar with the committee told the Times that they believe Hutchinson's decision to part ways with the lawyer who had been recommended by Trump allies and paid for by pro-Trump PAC likely played a role in her decision to provide new evidence. Her previous attorney was Stephen Positano, who worked as an ethics lawyer for the Trump White House. What? Trump nor his family has a lick of ethics. Why would they hire an ethics attorney? Did they just want to pay somebody to fervently ignore every second of the day? I guess. Hutchinson provided the testimony about Trump's actions in taped interviews behind closed doors and on Tuesday in stunning testimony to the committee after hiring a new lawyer, Jody Hunt. Looks like somebody's trust fund came through. Looks like somebody's trust fund came through with the come through. And quick update before we go to the next video. I know we touched on it a little bit last week about people calling for, especially the FCC being petitioned to have TikTok removed from the Google Play Store and Apple Store. But TikTok confirms that China-based employees can access U.S. user data, but only through an approval process. And you have to ask yourself, how many employees are really going through to access individuals' information in a country that they're not a part of and having views that do not affect them whatsoever? And you also have to ask yourself, why is it only conservative GOP members that are calling for this? Because conservative GOP, especially uber racist, white supremacist, QAnon sucked into individuals, are running TikTok at this point. They can say or do whatever they want that's misogynistic, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, biphobic, racist, and get away with it. It's when you clap back in defense of yourself, should you fit into any marginalized category, that you are punished. So you have to keep that in mind. But let's go into this next clip that is truly, truly important.
I'm sure you all remember the Uvalde mom, Angeli Gomez, who ran into the school while the shooter was still active and saved her kids. And remember, she did so after being handcuffed by the cops. Then she broke out of that, ran into the school to save her children. Well, the cops didn't like how she made them look bad, and now they are retaliating. Recently, she was pulled over for a traffic stop and falsely accused of having undocumented immigrants in her car. Then, a police car sat outside of her home for 45 minutes and flashed its lights at her and her mother as they went on a walk. There have also been other reports of her being harassed by the Uvalde police. It's like the Uvalde police know that they're in a really horrible situation and everybody's mad at them, and they go, what can we do to make everybody hate us even more?
See all that bootlicking? All of that back the blue until the blue no longer backs you and then you just get silent? This is why we are where we are. This is why police are so emboldened to remind us that they are not here to protect and serve. That's just a great marketing tagline. That's all it is. The only obligation of police is to show up after a crime and take whatever report they decide to take. listen to whoever they decide to listen to, use their biases to decide if you stay free, you feel safe, and go on about their business. That's it. That is absolutely it. And all I can say is those of you all that infantilize the police and the US military as if they are the Avengers or the Justice League, this is your fault. Because you're now doing the same thing to politicians. You claim to be good Christians, good good Protestants, but still not understanding that Catholicism is also Christianity. I digress. And not even reading your own biblical text. Once again, I digress. You're as fake as a $3 bill. You just want to appear to be the moral superiority, the moral superior, while being a hypocritical contradiction. But let's move on to another argument that has made a resurgence. Because, when white people fuck up, let's find a way to drag black people into the conversation. Not sure what I'm talking about? Stay tuned.
Why the y'all lying? Oh, Barack Obama didn't have no majority. Y'all can make excuses all you you rewrite history. A supermajority is having a filibuster-proof 60 or more Senate seats from one party to pass legislation without having votes from the other. Obama was elected to January 20th, 2009 with 58 Democrats. That ain't 60, bitch. You should have had 59, but the Republicans were contesting Al Franken in Minnesota. In April, a Republican senator by Arlen Specter switched parties to Democrats. That's 59. Still ain't 60. 1 month later, Senator Byrd from West Virginia was hospitalized and out on commission. So what the that mean? Code 23, a pimp is down. July, Al Franken finally gets sworn in. But remember, Senator Byrd is still out on commission. Then in August, Ted Kennedy dies. So what majority are y'all talking about? Stop rewriting history.
And let me also throw this caveat in. To my black people, let me talk to you. Y'all complain when white people get in office and do things specifically for white people and say how wrong it is. But then you expect us to come in and pick up and do the same wrongdoing that would be shut down quicker than any wrongdoing any pale-faced alabaster animaniac would ever do. You expected Barack Obama to come in there and just make mountains move for black people as if it wouldn't be immediately met with opposition, that it wouldn't be immediately overturned through an executive order. Did y'all think this through? Just like I tell our pale-faced counterparts, learn how government works, learn how things go, learn who's really in control of this country. Because as much as we have been taught to regard the presidency of the United States as the leader of the free world, as if we are the pinnacle of freedom, and this should be the highest office in the land and the most power, it is not. What happens to us is primarily denoted by the SCOTUS and the Congress. But y'all are so quick to condemn certain presidents and sit back and have these Monday morning armchair quarterback discussions, but not hold your Congress people accountable, not ask for them to do what you voted them into office to do, not you forgetting to require them to keep their campaign promises. But then you get pissed when these motherfuckers are in office till they die. They're so old, they're out of touch with everything. your needs, your desires, your primitive checklist to just survive in this nation. And then you're okay, everyone, with them lying to you on social media, going, well, why are they focused on this and not? Bitch, it's you. You are the one that's supposed to be focused on this. You are the one that's supposed to be invoking change. How you gonna sit here and go, well, the Democrats aren't doing this? You are in the same chambers as them. You are on the same committees as them. Why are you not doing your job? And constituents, why are you not requiring this? Y'all will go in and cuss out a 16-year-old at Burger King for accidentally not putting onions on your burger. And you're like, I'm paying your salary. You'll go in and cuss out a teacher for having standards for your child's education. And you're like, oh, I pay your salary. You're going to do what I want. But you can't say that for the people you voted into office to actually represent you. Make this shit make sense. Make it make sense. You sit here and say age ain't nothing but a number, and that you're not obligated to give respect to somebody because they're older than you, but y'all get real scary when it comes to you checking these elderly, decrepit, damn near sarcophagi written politicians that you keep voting back into office. You want to complain about everybody but those that have the power to make the changes you need to be made. I made a suggestion on TikTok and motherfuckers started coming for my neck because I said, hold the people you voted accountable. Get your phone banks ready. Get your letter campaigns together. If you can Karen a minor at a car wash, you can Karen a fellow grown-ass adult. And if you're not white, you can jack you the fuck out of that shit. So please tell me why y'all can't do that. You'll get mad at a teacher for not letting your precious Johnny or Beckiana color on the walls of the school. But you'll allow someone you voted into office to take away your rights, your bodily autonomy, everything else. And your answer is to now be mealy mouthed and meek and submissive and just cosplay it. And expect marginalized women to step up and take the hits for you. Hell nah. If you can cuss somebody out and bear spray them over a damn parking space, you can demand proper representation. Because aren't y'all the same ones that came up with the slogan, taxation without representation is what now? I'll wait. I've made time. But let's go to the next one. That sums up United States history. White people don't want to take a white woman away from her children, even though they know she has broken the law and committed a crime. Just like white people don't want to take a white domestic terrorist son away from their parents, but they have no problem with seeing those of us that are not white as inhuman and less than. and have no problem with them being taken away from us. But let's carry on.
So over the past few days in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, these flyers have been showing up on doorsteps and driveways. It says The Great Replacement and Its Consequences. On the back of it, it says, "Do you really want your children to become a hated minority in their own country?" And it has a QR code. Now, before I get into this, you should know that these were distributed by a white supremacist group. So if that's something that's triggering or upsetting for you, stop watching. So I went into the group chat because I think it's important to know what these extreme groups are thinking, doing, saying, planning. I just want to clarify that I am in no way shocked or surprised that these groups are active and working and trying to recruit more people. Also, I went back into the group chat just now to screenshot more stuff, and I've been kicked out. So I'm glad I screenshotted what I did yesterday. I'm just going to be sharing some things that I saw. So this post is talking about how America was meant to be white from its inception, and if the founding fathers could see that a Somalian person would be considered American, it would be a sick joke. This is specific to Minnesota because if you didn't know, Minnesota has the highest Somali population outside of Somalia. Love your people, your race, your nation. They're talking about loving white people, loving being white, and loving white America. Some of this stuff I can't even show, but this is an anti-Semitic post. Here they're saying that white people aren't allowed to protest for white rights, but courts and police begin to show black criminals favoritism. This is on their website, and this is what Jane Elliott has been touching on for years, which is called the birth dearth. And this is why they're trying to outlaw abortion. Either 50 or 60% of all fetuses that are aborted are white. So if they can save that 50 to 60%, they think that they can raise the white population again. The only media that portrays white men as the good guys is military recruitment ads. Not true. There's just actually representation for the first time of more than just white people. Being black or an immigrant is a get out of jail almost free card. This is simply not supported by facts. Black Americans are incarcerated at 5 times the rate that white Americans are. They also have a theory of the black violence epidemic, which is where they believe black people are actively trying to wipe out the white population. Another thing that I noticed is them talking a lot about how black people feel comfortable enough to stand up to us and how they feel superior to us. Black people have always stood up against racism. It's just not as culturally acceptable to be racist anymore. And that's not to say that the implications of systemic and cultural racism are any less severe or that racism doesn't still happen, because it absolutely does. There's no plot to wipe out white people. They've been predicting for years that the white population would decrease. I'm gonna have to make a part 2 because it's too much. Okay, so this is part 2 to my video about these flyers being distributed in the Cottage Grove, Minnesota area. And for context, they think that this case is an example of a larger scale theory that they have that there's a white massacre going on, that people are trying to wipe out white people. Now, if you don't know what type of place Cottage Grove, Minnesota is, let me give you a little taste. Cottage Grove, Minnesota is almost 84% white. One time in 7th or 8th grade, I was walking around Cottage Grove with a group of my friends, and I was the only white person, and the police pulled me over and pulled me to the side and asked me if I was okay and if I was there against my will, because they couldn't fathom the idea that I would willingly be around black people. I also had a boyfriend who lived in Cottage Grove, and he would get pulled over once a week, if not more, for no reason other than driving while black. There's also an area of Cottage Grove called Grey Cloud Island, which is known for hosting Klan rallies, actual Klan rallies. So when Cottage Grove Police Department posts this statement, "Hate will not be tolerated in Cottage Grove, period. This does not represent our community. We want to protect all of our neighbors of races, genders, religions, etc." It's like the Spider-Man meme when he's pointing at himself, because I know of at least one Cottage Grove police officer who's in that group chat, and there's probably many more that I don't know. I'm speaking on this because this is exactly why I do what I do. This is for all my white people who claim to be allies. If we're not being as organized, as vocal, and as active against white supremacy as these white supremacist groups are, what are we even doing?
But racism is dead, right? According to the vast majority of white America, racism died when Barack Obama was elected president, as if we're supposed to ignore all of the racism his family has endured and continues to endure, on top of the transphobia. And as far as to date, what I've learned, in his core family, there isn't a member of the trans community. Now, the next video, there are articles on BBC News, BBC.com, and other outlets. I am going to spare myself reading this because this shooting happened 30 minutes from my youngest daughter. And I am tired of being melanated in this country and hunted down and having to second guess myself regarding leaving my house. I am also tired of white people saying, oh, if you're not going to celebrate this, if you're not going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. For far too long, you all have used these nationalist holidays that don't even represent marginalized people to try to guilt us into going out into the public. And what happens when we go out into the public? We are hunted. Once again, research the Red Summer. But let's get into it.
You equally evil, yeah, I hope you see this. Don't want you or need you. Most the government, they only ran by some demons. They plotting and scheming to take the American dream and destroy the whole meaning. Don't tell.
Just so you know, this individual, all of his online presence was hatred, white supremacy, MAGA-fueled QAnon bullshit. He dressed up like a woman, climbed a ladder, picked people off, climbed back down the ladder, blended in with the crowd, escaped with people running from what he created, borrowed his mother's car and drove out of town. And he was taken without incident. He was taken without incident right after the following happened.
Yeah, so there's some really disturbing shit going on with APD, as if we didn't already know that. But on Sunday night, I believe they arrested like 50 people, and some of those people were Jalen's family. From what I've been told, they were walking around trying to find their vehicle to go home, and the Akron Police Department arrested them on rioting charges. And as of last night, none of them were able to have their phone call yet. And I'm pretty sure they weren't able to speak to a lawyer either. Their arraignments were this morning at 8 a.m., and I am awaiting the information about their bail on that. The APD actually went as far as to yank one of the women out of their own vehicle, and they tossed others in their patrol vehicles. And some of them are without their daily medication. So this is all really messed up. If you want to help, please call these numbers and tell them to drop the charges and release these people immediately. And if you're able to help with bail, here's the Akron Bail Fund, and I'll provide you with an update when I get one.
And for those of you that are not quite familiar with the Jalen Walker, aka Akron shooting, 90 shots were shot towards him. 90. 60 hit his body. He is unrecognizable. And their justification is that he was fleeing. What did the other gentleman do? Well, the domestic terrorist. What did the domestic terrorist do? Last time I checked, 7 people died. There were double-digit amount of people that were injured. But they took him in without incident. And he was tagged as armed and dangerous. Jalen did have a firearm, but it was in the car. He was outside of the car. And people who look like me, we do have a fear of police at this point. We do have a fight or flight response when it comes to police. Because whether we comply, whether we're sleeping in our homes, whether, as I said previously, and as I said on a video on TikTok, it doesn't matter what we do. We could be babysitting. We could be changing a tire. We could be getting snacks from the store. We could be a licensed vendor. We could be sleeping in our home, playing a video game. Just being black in public. And the outcome is still the same. So what is our deterrent from running? Because at least if we run, in our mind, we have a chance of surviving. But now they're like, fuck it, Swiss cheese these motherfuckers. That's how they're coming across. I'm going to cut today's show at this point. I'm going to go and do Tastic Tuesdays. Give me about 15 minutes and it should be up right on this channel. Or like I said, you can always click the link in the bio and subscribe to that and get immediate updates and be the first one to hear it. Let me ask this of you. Stop sending and tagging marginalized people traumatic events. We already know that it's happened. We don't need to see it. We don't need to hear about it 50 million times a day. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Till tomorrow.